Please like this video. I really need your support right now. It's the only way this story can reach more people. Thank you so much for being here with me and for your support. She chose a place with white tablecloths and too many mirrors. That was my first red flag. Lauren never picked that kind of restaurant unless she wanted to steer the wheel and make it look like I was along for the ride. She kept her phone face down but close, like a second fork. She stirred a glass of Pinot she wasn't tasting. I cut my steak with the care because I already felt the ground shift. We need to talk. She opened, like a manager closing a project. Go on. I leaned back. No hand-holding tonight. No rescue lines either. I've gotten close to someone at work, she said. It's Grant. I set my knife down. The room stayed loud, but I heard the sentence fall and roll under the table. She watched my face like there was a correct answer. Your boss, I said flat. Right. She nodded, jaw tight. With him I feel significant. Alive. With you it's like you're just home and bills. Efficient phrasing, I replied. Next slide. I want a divorce. It'll be better this way. We can do it civilly. If I'd known where it was headed, I would have ordered dessert. Not to celebrate. To mark the last meal before we stopped pretending. Okay, I said. She blinked. Okay, what? Okay, we'll do what you want. Civilly. I reached for my water. You done with the wine or just stirring it for effect? You're being cruel. No. Efficient. You brought a decision. I'm acknowledging it. She waited for the argument, the begging, the deal. When it didn't show up, she picked up her phone, then put it down again. We can talk through logistics later, she said, steadying her voice. I'll stay at Amy's for a bit. Her sister. Predictable outpost. Fine. Before you go. I paused as the server set down the check like an award. Take your time tonight. I'll be home packing your things into labeled bins, because you like control and labels. I'm a giver. She stared. You're trying to punish me. No. I'm saving us both time. You'll need your version of order. I'll need mine. She reached for my wrist. I pulled my hand away, calm. She dropped her hand. The mirror over her shoulder showed a woman measuring risk. Not grief. Risk. Don't make this ugly, she tried. Ugly is your word. Mine is clear. On the drive home, I didn't blast music or break anything. I stopped for gas, wiped a crusted bug off the windshield with a napkin, and texted my old contracts attorney, Sam Lerner. Need to talk. Family logistics. Tomorrow? He replied within 5 minutes. Come by at 10. That's how I handle storms. I look at the map and pick the highest ground. I packed Lauren's things the way she files manuscripts. Season by season. Work clothes. Gym clothes. The dress she wore the night we celebrated my last book deal. I labeled the bins with painter's tape and a Sharpie. When Nate came down the stairs, he watched me for a long beat. You're not yelling, he said. Not part of the plan, I answered. What's the plan? Stability and truth. In that order. He nodded and went back up. He's 15 and already thinks like an engineer. Haley's 8. She sleeps like a dropped anchor, through anything. Good. The anchor is staying with me. The next morning I took Haley to school, Nate to early band practice, and sat in Sam's office with black coffee and a yellow pad. Sam's 50, grayer since the last time I'd used him for a contract clause fight, and allergic to drama. You sure you don't want a specialist? He asked after I laid it out. I do contracts, not these. I don't need a gladiator, I told him. I need a translator. No prenup. Never needed one, I said. Until now. He flipped a page. We'll need clarity on assets, custody, and any transfers. Transfers. He looked up. Ethan, when people plan exits, they move money. Quietly. You said she's been distant? For months, I said. Phone like a second limb. Then she moved money. I left with a list. Pull bank statements, copy calendars, note appointments. I'm a writer. I'm paid to notice patterns. I spent the next 2 days noticing. I was not doing cyber forensics, just opening doors she left unlocked. Our joint account told a story even a bad editor would catch. Tiny withdrawals that mean nothing alone, a pattern when stacked. 80 here, 100 there. Then a transfer labeled household leftover to her separate account. Over 2 years it added up to a number that would make anyone sit up straight. Nate knocked on my office door that night and came in with a blue folder. He placed it on my desk like a gift he didn't want to give. What's this? I asked. Things Mom forgot I'm not 8, he said. He sat, elbows on knees. I'm not proud of this, but you need to know. Inside, screenshots of messaging apps where she hadn't logged out, clipped calendar entries, late night calls labeled as proofread, a few audio clips, not a stash from a kid looking for drama, a teenager who had watched enough to stop pretending. I started a year ago, he said, when she started disappearing and telling me to lie to you about drop-offs. At first I thought it was just work. Then I heard a call. I didn't want to hear it, but I did. You recorded your mother? He held my eyes. I recorded her yelling at me last spring because I asked where she'd been. That's when I started saving stuff. I didn't know what I'd do with it. I just knew someone should remember. He opened his phone and pulled up our insurance portal. Also, I know I overstepped, but I saw her medical history. There were procedures. Multiple. He was careful with the words. He's my son. We're not gossipers. We're fact men. I didn't jump up or pound the desk. I reached across, put my hand on the folder, then on his shoulder. You don't carry this alone, I told him. She's going to try to make you the bad guy, he said. I'm not going to play along. Good, I said. You won't have to. When Lauren came by that night to grab some essentials, she scanned the bins with a face that said I'd committed a crime against spontaneity. You labeled my life? She asked. You did, I corrected. I just wrote the tags. This is petty. This is clear. She followed me into the kitchen. We need to discuss weekends with the kids, she said. We will, I answered, pouring a fresh cup. But not by text bombs and not tonight. Saturday they're with me. Nate has band practice. Haley has a birthday party. I'll pick them up after. That depends on their choice and schedule, not your optics. My optics. You chose a boardroom posture last night, Lauren. I'm simply not going to prop it up. She softened, quick and practiced. First illusion. Ethan, I'm not trying to hurt you, she said, reaching for the gentler register. I don't want to blow up their lives. I need something different, and staying in a dead thing isn't. Careful with pronouns. I cut in. Their lives are not your prop. We'll keep them steady. You want different, go get different. I'll keep stability here. The next day, I attended errands like a field commander. Passwords changed on shared accounts. I split recurring bills. I stopped autopays from the joint and routed them through my own. I sent Lauren an email, not a text, not a call, with a list of new arrangements, separate budgets, shared calendar for kid logistics only, written communication for anything substantive. I did not ask for approval. I informed. That was the first boundary in writing, and I copied Sam. Let me pause the story for just a second. If you're still here, please hit the like button. It really helps YouTube recommend this story to more people. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get back to the story. By Friday, Lauren had moved to Amy's, and I had a meeting circled in my head that didn't involve attorneys. I bought a ticket to an opening in River North, some new contemporary show Vivian Langford was hosting. I'd studied her in features and photos. Ex-curator, the quiet public face standing 3 steps behind Grant at every gala, known for smart, measured remarks and never making the wrong headline. If there was a person who understood control and what it cost, it was her. The gallery was all concrete and glass. Free wine in plastic cups, and a mural that tried too hard. Vivian moved through the room like a person who knew every name and could forget any of them by morning. I stepped into her path when she paused by a collage. Ms. Langford, I said, I'm Ethan Reeves, writer. I've admired your eye for works that don't need a press release to explain themselves. She gave me a neutral smile. That's the goal, she replied. Do we know each other? No. We might have a mutual acquaintance, I said. But I wanted to say I liked your last panel on curation as stewardship. It sounded like a person talking, not a press kit. Her smile warmed a degree. People who live in the shadow of a giant wallet rarely get spoken to as people. Thank you, she said. That panel was the last time I felt like I was doing my real job. Coffee after this? I asked. 10 minutes. No pitch. She weighed the room, then nodded. There's a place around the corner that doesn't serve foam as personality. We sat by the window, 2 adults who had used up patience on other subjects all week. I didn't waste her time. I didn't accidentally bump into you, I said. My wife works for your husband. She initiated an exit this week. She told me why. Vivian didn't flinch. She wrapped her hands around the cup like it was a prop to keep them occupied. I hired a private investigator last year, she said quietly. He handed me a binder that doubled as a doorstop. Names. Hotel invoices. One was Lauren Reeves. Doorstop is the right word, I said. You're staying married for? An image. A daughter, she said, voice level. And because I was trained to keep the museum quiet while donors cut checks. You still trained that muscle. She looked at me then, eyes sharp. I'm tired. Not theatrical tired. Bone tired. I want consequences that touch his comfort. Not gossip pages. Leverage. I have my own, I said. I told her about the bank trail, the folder Nate handed me, the medical entries. I didn't deliver them like explosives. I put them on the table like tools. I'm not going to walk around with a sandwich board. I'm going to protect my kids and my home. If some dominoes fall when truth stands up, so be it. I have board members who have tolerated his habits, she said. They don't tolerate misuse of corporate funds. The investigator found some creative accounting tied to personal entertainment. That changes his risk calculus. It changes the air he breathes. She met my eyes. We don't have to be friends. We do have aligned interests. Agreed, I said. We coordinate. No public scenes. Facts only. You move through the corporate channel. I move through custody and finances. We don't warn them. She finished her coffee and nodded. Send your attorney my investigator's summary, she said. I'll confirm what can be used. When you move, tell me when, not why. I walked out lighter, not in heart, but in plan. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do with a wound is stop poking it and start building the fence. Lauren emailed Saturday morning. A formal tone, probably drafted with help. I will be taking the children this weekend. Please confirm they're ready by noon. I answered with the new rule set. Per schedule and their commitments, not feasible. We can discuss a consistent plan through mediation. No response. At 11:58, Amy's Prius slid up our curb. Lauren came to the door without knocking. Nate stood in the hallway behind me. They're coming, she declared. I stepped onto the porch, kept my voice low. No, they're not. Nate has band. Haley has a party. This isn't a photo op. You don't decide unilaterally, she snapped. You picked that restaurant alone. You announced a life change alone, I said. I'm picking structure. Starting now. Nate cleared his throat. I'm staying here, he said from the doorway. I'll bring Haley Tuesday for dinner if she wants. Not today. Lauren's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at him, then passed him at me. So you've turned him against me. Don't make him a prop, I said. He's a person. She inhaled, switched gear. Second illusion. Can we please not do this in front of Amy, she said, softer, eyes shining at the edge. I made mistakes. I don't want the kids in the middle. We can find something fair. I let the softer air hang long enough to see if it was real. It wasn't. It was cushion for her jump. We will find something fair, I said. It starts with you not unilaterally dictating weekends from a parking app. She left without slamming anything. Points for restraint. That afternoon, I took Haley to buy a birthday card, and we wrote, "Have fun," and stuck a sticker sheet inside. She hummed the whole drive. That's stability. Not perfect. Steady. Mediation felt like a dental office with old magazines and a bowl of mints no one touches. The mediator, a pleasant woman with even tone, walked us through guidelines. Lauren sat with a young attorney in a navy suit who tried hard to look bored. Sam beside me flipped to a clean page. I had a binder. I like binders now. Lauren's lawyer began with a speech about primary caregiver dynamics, continuity of home, and maintaining the children's established environment. Translation: give her the house, the kids, and a payment plan. Let's talk reality, Sam said. He passed over a packet, school sign-in records, doctor appointment confirmations, PDA emails. Mr. Reeves has been the primary weekday parent for years while Ms. Reeves advanced in her role. No shame on career. But let's label what happened. Lauren shifted. That's not true. The mediator held a hand up. Let's stick to documents. Sam slid over a second packet. Bank statements, he said, almost cheerful. Over 2 years, regular transfers from the joint to Ms. Reeves's personal account in small amounts, labeled leftover, totaling $95,000 and change. We can go line by line. Lauren's attorney went pale in a way that made me think law school doesn't include how to handle client secrets. Lauren stared at the table. Then she lifted her chin. That was savings, she said. I managed the household. That was my surplus. And your plan was what? I asked. Walk out with surplus and call me the stable friend who pays for the rest. That's not what I. Don't finish that sentence. I cut in. It's insulting, and you're smarter than that. The mediator suggested a break. In the hallway, Lauren confronted me by the vending machine. You really want to scorch the earth? She asked. You brought matches, I answered. I brought a fire extinguisher labeled facts. She looked past me, calculating. We can do 50-50, she offered. No child support either way. No talk about those transfers. The house stays with me so the kids aren't disrupted. You want to be significant and alive elsewhere, I said. But you want me to fund the museum. Hard pass. Don't be vindictive. This isn't that. This is a budget. You ran one at home, remember? Line items. This line is called respect. It's non-negotiable. We went back in. Sam outlined our terms. Weekday residence with me, weekends alternating, joint decision-making, return of all transferred funds to the joint, and then split per law. No introduction of new partners to the kids during the process. All children's expenses from a separate account funded equally. The mediator nodded like a metronome. Lauren's attorney huddled with her, whispering fast. Lauren turned back, voice controlled. I can agree to the kid schedule for now, she said. On the funds, I can return a portion. The rest, I can't. You can't? I responded. You just don't want to. She recoiled. You're threatening me. I'm informing you of the next level, I said. We stop calling them leftovers and start calling them by their correct name in front of the people who care about correct names. I don't prefer that path, but I won't subsidize a version of me you created for speeches. The mediator asked for another pause. Good. I needed one less mint in the bowl. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from a number saved years ago as unknown board member after a charity thing I'd written. He'd been on a panel with Grant once. There's chatter, the text read. Emergency meeting about expense irregularities. Your name didn't come up. Yet. I sent Vivian a single line. The air moved. She replied, not by accident. Keep your terms. Lauren tried a different channel. Sunday morning, she arrived with pastries from a fancy place, a soft sweater, and an apology script. Haley cheered at the sight of sugar. Nate watched from the stairs, arms crossed like a security guard who knows the code. Lauren took my elbow in the kitchen. I shouldn't have blindsided you like that dinner, she said, voice low, eyes shiny. I was scared. This doesn't have to be war. Let's take the house off the table. You can keep it. I'll rent. But let the transfers go. That was smarter than the first illusion. Trade the symbol for the cash. She knew my weak spot, a home with my kids in it. She tilted the tray of pastries toward me like a bribe in frosting. That's generous, I replied. And transactional. Ethan. You're not sorry, I said. You're strategic. I don't mind. Strategy keeps people fed, but don't sell it as healing. What do you want from me? An honest ledger. She swallowed. I can give you 40 now. The rest over time. You can give me all of it now, or we escalate. I wiped a smudge of sugar off the counter with my thumb and put it on a napkin. Take Haley to the park. Be back at 3. Nate has homework. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man who used to explain his feelings for an hour if she asked. She nodded, took Haley, and left a box of pastries because optics are edible. At Sam's office Monday, we added a line to our proposal. If the funds weren't returned by Friday, we'd formalize the issue with the right letters. Not court threats, just the kind of paperwork that adds weight to a file cabinet. Tuesday, I met Vivian again, this time in a quiet corner of a hotel lobby where no one from her circle goes unless they want to be seen. Remind me why we're doing this, she asked, not dramatically. Professionally. Because they expected emotional chaos, I said. We're handing them structure and consequence. It fits the crime better. I don't like that word, she said. Neither do I said. But we both know what we're describing. She slid a folder across. The expense report highlights, she said. Clean enough to show a board without burning the building down. You didn't get this from me. I didn't, I said. What if he calls you? She asked, meaning. What if the big man decides to settle things over a drink and a smile? I won't be available for that format, I said. Let me pause the story for just a second. If you're still here, please hit the like button. It really helps YouTube recommend this story to more people. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get back to the story. The board met. I wasn't there. I was in a school gym listening to Haley try the clarinet, which sounded like an appliance choking on a marble. I clapped anyway. When we got home, a message waited from Lauren. It was shorter than usual. "We need to revisit terms," it said. "Call me." I replied by email. "Nothing to revisit. Funds by Friday. Kid schedule per list. House stays. New rules apply." She showed up Thursday evening when it was getting dark, hair pulled back, suit on, the look of someone whose day didn't go as planned. "What did you do?" she demanded. "Today, I set down a dish towel, taught Haley to scramble eggs, drove Nate to practice, wrote a page. You know what I mean." "I do," I said, "but I like the eggs better." She stepped closer. "Grant's had issues come up. He says you're trying to ruin him." "He gives me too much credit," I said. "He ruins himself with his calendar and expense reports." "This will affect my job," she said, suddenly honest. "Do you understand that?" "I do," I said. "It already affected our home. We're both adults. We both played. We both pay." She lowered her voice. "If I return the money, all of it, will you stop whatever you started?" "I didn't start anything," I said. "I simply stopped covering. And yes, you return all of it. And the only people who will hear the word transfer are the ones who need to balance ledgers." She folded her arms. "You've changed." "No," I said. "I just stopped agreeing to your terms." Friday morning, the funds hit the joint. 95,000 and some pennies. Sam emailed 3 words. "Got it. Nice." At the second mediation session, Lauren's lawyer opened with less swagger. They agreed to the weekday custody at my place, alternating weekends, joint decisions, kids' expenses from the shared fund. The house stayed with me. The mediator looked relieved, like a dentist whose patient finally agreed to floss. Then came the moment I hadn't planned to use, the kill turn, but I brought it anyway in case someone tried to sell me a used car. We were reviewing a standard clause about honesty and disclosures when Lauren's attorney made a comment about no significant undisclosed medical decisions affecting the family. It was routine filler. I watched Lauren's face tighten for half a second. That was enough. "Before we finalize," I said, "I want to be sure the record is complete. Insurance shows multiple procedures I was never told about. They don't change custody or cash. They change respect. That's why the soft deal you offered in the hallway last time is off the table." The room went very still. The mediator, to her credit, kept moving her pen. Lauren didn't look at me. She looked at the carpet and picked a point. Her lawyer opened his mouth, then closed it. "We can agree all medical matters are private," he said. "Already did," I said. "I'm not publishing anything. I'm adjusting my stance forever." Lauren whispered, almost to herself. "You weren't supposed to see that. That's the slogan of this whole mess," I replied. We finished. Papers printed. We didn't sign that day. Mediation is a process, but the shape of our life was set. I stood, put my binder under my arm, and looked at her once, not cruel, not warm. "You made a choice," I said. "Now you'll live with the shape of it. I'm not your background anymore." I walked out first. Not a slam. A door that closed on its own because someone designed the hinge right. In the days after, our home calmed. Haley drew pictures of houses that looked suspiciously like ours and handed them to me with all the windows colored yellow. Nate cut the grass without being asked and fixed the wobbly pantry shelf. We worked like a unit that had decided to be one. Vivian texted me a link to a press release 2 weeks later. Blackwell Press announces internal review of expense procedures. CEO to step back from day-to-day operations pending review. It wasn't a scandal. It was an office notice. That's worse for men like him than headlines. Headlines can be spun. Memos change access badges. Lauren sent one more long message trying to rebuild a different narrative. "We can be friends someday," she wrote. "I want the kids to see us as civilized." "Civilized as actions," I replied. "You'll get that from me. I don't do someday stories." At Nate's school concert, I stood in the back with other dads who clap on beat. Amy sat with Lauren 2 rows up. During intermission, Amy turned, gave me a look that said I was supposed to be ashamed. I smiled and asked if she needed help finding the concession stand. She blinked first. After winter break, I upgraded my car, not a midlife crisis thing, a reliable thing, and moved my desk out of the spare bedroom into a small office downtown I rented month to month. Writing is easier when your house is in a courtroom. I started a new book that didn't mention any of this. The plot didn't need family drama. It needed a clean line and an honest ending. One Saturday, Vivian and I ran into each other in line at a coffee shop. River North again. We didn't hug or swap worse stories. We nodded like two people who had done what needed doing without exploding the neighborhood. "How's your daughter?" I asked. "Reading again," she answered. "That's my barometer." "How's your board?" "Reading again," she said dryly. "That's theirs." We smiled. She picked up her order. Before she left, she said, "You were right. Structure hurt him more than noise." "Noise is a cheap high," I said. "Structures last." Back home, Haley and I fixed a wobbly drawer. She held the flashlight like a surgeon. Nate came in later, tossed me the mail, and asked if he could invite a couple of friends to watch the game. I said yes and set out bowls of chips like a normal dad. That's the win. Not fanfare, not payback, just a house where the air is honest. Lauren's life didn't collapse. It frayed. She moved into a decent apartment not far from Amy. She kept her job for a while, then shifted laterally to a different imprint with less shine and more spreadsheets. People who used to orbit her when she announced meetings suddenly had other rooms to be in. Grant returned to the building after his break, but the door he walked through didn't lead to the same office. That's not my story. That's just context. Sometimes I get a message from Lauren about a schedule switch. It's polite, neutral, signed with her full name like we're colleagues. I answer quickly, with yes or no and the times. When she picks up Haley on a Sunday night, she stands on the porch, comments on the new mailbox or the trimmed hedge, tries to find a path to the version of us that used to debrief our weeks over tea. I don't open that door. I wave to Haley, tell her to grab her jacket, and walk back to the kitchen to finish packing her lunch for Monday. Steady beats nostalgia. Every time. People ask me if I'm angry. That's the wrong unit. I'm not measuring fire. I'm measuring respect. I run my house. I write my pages. I show up for my kids. If I let that slip, then all of this was just noise. One evening, after a Cubs game with Nate and his friends, we pulled into the driveway. The porch light clicked on automatically. Haley's bike was leaning where it shouldn't. Nate moved it without me asking. The little domestic nothing that tells you exactly what kind of life you've built. Nate looked at me over the hood of the car. "You doing okay?" he asked. "I am," I said. "You didn't lose yourself in this." "I shelved a draft," I told him. "Wrote a better one." He smirked. "Of course you did." Inside, the house smelled like garlic and detergent. I poured water, checked the next day's calendar, and turned off the lamp. Before bed, I wrote a note on an index card and stuck it on my office wall. "Keep the fence high and the gate open for the right people." It wasn't poetry. It was a rule. On the day we signed the final papers, we sat at a long table in a bland room. No speeches, no breakdowns. Lauren held the pen like it was heavier than usual. When it was my turn, I read every line, signed, and slid the stack back. As I stood, I looked at her once more. Not to judge, to end the meeting like we should have ended that dinner. "You'll be fine," I said. "Just not on my time." She nodded, a slow acceptance, maybe real, maybe strategic. Didn't matter. I walked out of that building into cold Chicago air, texted Nate a thumbs up, and called Haley to remind her to bring her library book home. A block away, a vendor was selling terrible coffee in paper cups. I bought one and drank it without pretending it tasted good. It did the job. That's where I live now. Not in speeches. In jobs done. A month later, on a Saturday morning, I was at the hardware store picking up screws for another drawer that thought it deserved freedom. A woman next to me asked if I knew the difference between two sizes. I gave her the quick version. She laughed at my line about drawers rebelling and asked what I did for a living. I said I wrote. She said she taught. We grabbed coffee at the spot across the parking lot. She had a quiet voice and a spine. I didn't need fireworks. I needed respect. We traded numbers. Not a grand start. A real one. That night, Haley fell asleep early on the couch with a book over her face. Nate texted from a friend's place. "Be back by 10. I sat at my desk, looked at the note on the wall, and opened my laptop. The house was quiet in the way that lets you hear the life you built, not the storm you survived. I didn't toast to moving on. I wrote a page, then another. And when I turned off the lamp, I said out loud to no one. A simple closing line that matched the man I chose to be. Respect kept. Case closed.